What if I told you that your American passport could actually make travel harder? It's true. Over the past few years, the number of countries placing restrictions on U.S. travelers has skyrocketed. You won't believe which countries are no longer rolling out the welcome mat, and trust me, when we get to number 4, you'll be shocked. I couldn't believe it myself. Welcome to Watch the Globe, your go-to guide for uncovering the world's best-kept secrets. Today, we're diving into a topic every American traveler should know about: countries where you might not be as welcome as you think. So, let's kick things off with 10 countries where Americans are not as welcome anymore. 1. North Korea. Our first stop takes us to the secretive and enigmatic North Korea. Now, this isn't just a case of cold shoulders. North Korea is literally off limits for Americans, with the US government imposing an outright travel ban. But why? The tension between the US and North Korea dates back decades, fueled by nuclear threats, sanctions, and propaganda. American visitors are seen as potential threats to the regime. In the past, tourists have been detained for seemingly minor offenses, such as leaving a Bible in a hotel room or taking a poster from a wall. These actions can lead to years of imprisonment in brutal conditions. Even if you managed to get into North Korea, which you can't, thanks to the ban, you'd experience the eerie atmosphere of constant surveillance. It's as if every step you take is being watched. American tourists are chaperoned by government-assigned guides and have little freedom to explore on their own. So, while North Korea remains a land shrouded in mystery and intrigue, it's a destination where your stars and stripes could get you in serious trouble. What's more, relations between North Korea and the US have fluctuated wildly over the years. At times, leaders from both nations have engaged in talks, offering glimmers of hope for reconciliation. But ultimately, the rigid regime in North Korea has ensured that meaningful change remains elusive, keeping the country off limits for most of the world, especially Americans. Would you visit if you had the chance to see this mysterious, locked-away country? Let us know in the comments. 2. Iran. Next up, we journey to the Middle East, where Iran presents a uniquely beautiful yet challenging destination for American travelers. Although it's possible to visit, the visa process for Americans is grueling and often feels like a labyrinth of bureaucracy. Why all the hassle? The US and Iran have a troubled relationship dating back to the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The fallout from that event, along with ongoing political tension, has created a level of mistrust between the two countries. The visa process for US citizens is intentionally difficult. You'll need sponsorship from an Iranian agency and approval from the government itself. Even if you secure a visa, you'll be constantly monitored, with limitations on where you can go and who you can interact with. But there's more. Iranians are incredibly hospitable and welcoming, but the government's strict control means your movements will always be under a microscope. Imagine walking through the bustling bazaars of Tehran or visiting the majestic ruins of Persepolis, all while knowing that every move is being watched. It's a culturally rich but politically fraught experience. Iran also presents a unique juxtaposition. While it's steeped in millennia-old history, with stunning cultural sites and a highly educated population, political friction has kept many travelers at bay. Iran's beautiful mosques, exquisite Persian gardens, and vibrant cities hold immense appeal for travelers, but for Americans, the risk of being under intense scrutiny is a harsh reality. Would you consider visiting Iran despite the challenges? Or maybe you've been there before? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. 3. Venezuela. From the heart of the Middle East, we now move to the lush landscapes of Venezuela. This South American country, known for its stunning beauty, has sadly become a risky place for American travelers. Once famous for its beaches, mountains, and friendly people, Venezuela now faces high levels of political turmoil. The country's economy has collapsed under Nicolas Maduro's regime, and anti-American sentiment runs high. US citizens have been targeted for kidnappings, extortion, and arbitrary detention. Add to this the high crime rates, including robberies and assaults, and Venezuela quickly becomes a place that's off limits for most tourists. The US State Department has issued multiple travel advisories warning against non-essential travel here. Even airlines have reduced their flights to the country due to its instability. So, while the beaches and rainforests of Venezuela might call to adventurers, the reality is that it's not worth the risk for US travelers. It's heartbreaking to see such a beautiful country, known for its angel falls, lush jungles, and Andes mountains, descend into such chaos. Historically, Venezuela was one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America, largely due to its vast oil reserves. Today, however, corruption, mismanagement, and political unrest have eroded much of that wealth, turning it into one of the most dangerous places for Americans to visit. 4. Russia. This brings us to Russia, a country whose stance toward American visitors has become increasingly icy. Not too long ago, Russia was a hotspot for US tourists. But today, recent political conflicts have strained relations to the point where the travel experience has become less than friendly. The fallout from international sanctions, diplomatic disputes, and growing anti-American sentiment has led to tighter restrictions on visas. There's also the ever-present risk of being under surveillance. Walking through Moscow or St. Petersburg may still provide a cultural feast, but the political tension is palpable. It's no longer just about seeing the Red Square or the Hermitage Museum. American travelers now face a reality where they're seen with growing suspicion. If legal trouble strikes, securing help as a foreigner can be particularly difficult. So while Russia remains a captivating destination in many ways, for US citizens, it's no longer the open and welcoming place it once was. Russian-American relations have seen many ups and downs since the Cold War. Unfortunately, today's geopolitical landscape means the friendliness has waned, replaced by suspicion. The country's rich history, its world-famous vodka, and its dramatic landscapes are still strong lures, but for Americans, the experience of visiting Russia is now a different story. Before we move on to number 5, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're finding this content valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're aiming to reach 5,000 likes so we can keep bringing you these global travel insights. Your support means the world to us. Thank you so much. Saudi Arabia. Now, let's fly to the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, Saudi Arabia. Known for its oil wealth and spiritual landmarks like Mecca, Saudi Arabia is a land of both opportunity and caution for US travelers. While Saudi Arabia has been opening its doors to tourism as part of its Vision 2030, there's a distinct cultural gap that US citizens need to navigate. Strict interpretations of Islamic law govern everyday life here, and even simple actions like wearing inappropriate clothing or showing public affection can lead to harsh penalties. Although Americans can visit Saudi Arabia, it's crucial to remember that this is a country where a misstep could have serious consequences. Respect for local customs is essential, and there are still plenty of regions off limits to foreigners. So while Saudi Arabia offers a unique blend of tradition and modernity, it's also a place where US citizens need to be extra cautious. This culturally rich country is trying to attract more tourism with ultra-modern projects like the futuristic city of Neom and the opening of its cultural heritage sites, such as Al Ula. But US visitors must be mindful of the deeply conservative society and its laws, which can make the experience complex and restrictive. 6. Syria. A country that has seen better days but is currently embroiled in one of the most devastating civil wars in modern history. Before the conflict, Syria was a cultural and historical gem, home to ancient cities, religious landmarks, and rich Middle Eastern traditions. But today, Syria is among the most dangerous places in the world for Americans, largely due to the civil war and extremist groups. US citizens are viewed with suspicion by both the Syrian government and rebel factions. The threat of kidnapping, violence, and general instability makes Syria a no-go zone for most travelers. Although Syria's deep historical significance is undeniable, the risks far outweigh the rewards for anyone with a US passport. 7. Yemen. Just across the border from Saudi Arabia is Yemen, a country that has been ravaged by war and humanitarian crisis. Yemen's ancient architecture, bustling markets, and stunning landscapes paint the picture of a world lost in time, but the reality on the ground is much bleaker. For US citizens, Yemen is one of the riskiest places to visit, as the country is embroiled in a brutal civil war. The presence of terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS has made it a hotbed for kidnappings and attacks, particularly against Westerners. While the country is steeped in history and culture, it's currently one of the least hospitable places on Earth for Americans. 8. Afghanistan. A country many Americans are all too familiar with due to the decades-long conflict there. Since the Taliban regained control following the U.S. withdrawal, Afghanistan has become increasingly dangerous for American visitors. The Taliban regime is highly hostile to U.S. citizens, and there's an ever-present risk of violence, detention, and terrorism. The harsh reality is that, despite its majestic mountains and rich culture, Afghanistan is now a place where Americans are unwelcome. Even those who served or had ties to the country during previous administrations would face extreme danger if they were to return. 9. Somalia. Next up is Somalia, a country torn apart by decades of conflict and lawlessness. The U.S. government has long warned against travel to Somalia, citing the extreme risk of terrorism, kidnapping, and piracy. For Americans, Somalia is a country best admired from afar. Although it boasts a fascinating history and stunning coastal views, the dangers presented by groups like Al-Shabaab mean that any travel to Somalia could be life-threatening. 10. Libya. Finally, we head to Libya, a country that has been in chaos since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. Once home to some of North Africa's most stunning Roman ruins, today's Libya is mired in conflict between rival militias. For U.S. citizens, the risks of terrorism, kidnapping, and arbitrary detention are extremely high. Both the U.S. government and international travel organizations strongly advise against any non-essential travel to Libya. And that wraps up our journey through the 10 countries where Americans are not as welcome as they used to be. Whether it's due to political tension, cultural differences, or safety concerns, these destinations present real challenges for U.S. travelers. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Watch the Globe for more travel tips and hidden gems. Until next time, keep exploring and keep dreaming. See you in the next video.